There are stories that begin with action, and others that begin with absence. This one begins with a pause, with light moving across water, with a feeling that something has already happened, even if no one is ready to name it yet. Here, the world feels open, almost too open, as if memory and imagination are allowed to drift without borders. The sea does not rush, the sky does not explain itself. Everything appears gentle, but nothing is simple. This is a place where people arrive not to escape life, but to sit with it, to listen to what remains after loss, after desire, after words have failed. A woman walks into this space, carrying questions she does not yet know how to ask. She is not searching for answers. She is searching for air, for stillness, for a way to exist without being pulled backward. Elsewhere, a man's voice lingers, not fully present, not fully gone. His thoughts move like fragments, circling around love, guilt, and imagination. What is real begins to soften at the edges. What is remembered begins to feel lived again. Stories overlap, identities blur. The line between creation and confession grows thin. Here, intimacy is not rushed. It is observed. It is treated as something fragile, capable of healing or breaking without warning. Bodies appear not as spectacle, but as language, another way of speaking when words fall short. Desire is present, but it is quiet. It does not demand, it waits. This is a film that moves like memory itself. Forward, backward, sideways. It trusts the viewer to feel rather than categorize, to drift rather than arrive. Nothing is announced, nothing is resolved too quickly, and as the light holds steady and the sea keeps its rhythm, one senses that this story is not asking to be understood yet, only entered, slowly, carefully, as if stepping into water that looks calm but runs deeper than expected. Lucia is the emotional center of the film. She is a young woman whose presence is defined by openness rather than certainty. Lucia listens more than she speaks. She absorbs spaces, silences, and people. When she moves through the film, she does so gently, yet with quiet determination. She is not portrayed as naive, but as someone still discovering how memory and desire shape identity. Paz Vega's performance brought immediate international attention. At the time, she was relatively unknown outside Spain, and this role established her as an actress capable of vulnerability without weakness. Her physicality is natural, never exaggerated, and her expressions often carry more meaning than dialogue. After this film, Vega became closely associated with European art cinema and later transitioned into international projects. Lorenzo is a writer, though the film treats this less as a profession and more as a state of mind. He exists between reality and imagination, often unsure where one ends and the other begins. His presence feels fragmented, thoughtful, distant, and sometimes emotionally inaccessible. He is not framed as a hero or a victim, but as someone struggling with responsibility, creation, and consequence. Tristán Ulloa plays Lorenzo with restraint. His performance avoids dramatic display and instead leans into introspection. Ulloa was already respected in Spanish cinema, but this role deepened his reputation as an actor suited to complex, inward characters. Elena carries emotional gravity. She is observant, wounded, and sharp without being cruel. Her presence introduces tension not through conflict, but through awareness. She understands more than she reveals and feels more than she explains. Elena's role is crucial in grounding the film's emotional weight. Najwa Nimri, already known for intense performances, brings controlled strength to the character. Her delivery is measured, and her stillness often feels deliberate. Nimri's work in this film reinforced her reputation for portraying emotionally layered women. Elena represents youth shaped by neglect and longing. She is impulsive, searching, and often overlooked by the adults around her. Her character reflects the unintended consequences of emotional absence. Elena Anaya's performance is brief but impactful. This role came early in her career and contributed to her later recognition as a powerful presence in Spanish and international cinema. Carlos is grounded, practical, and emotionally accessible. His presence contrasts with Lorenzo's abstraction. He represents stability and physical reality in a story often drifting into imagination. Daniel Freire plays the role with warmth and clarity, offering balance rather than dominance. Julio Medem wrote and directed Sex and Lucia. His filmmaking style is marked by circular storytelling, poetic structure, and a fascination with memory, coincidence, and emotional repetition. Medem does not guide viewers with explanation. He trusts rhythm, image, and silence. This film is considered one of his most personal and internationally recognized works. The story begins with Lucia, a young woman recovering from personal loss, living quietly in a small coastal town. She carries grief and confusion like a shadow that never fully leaves. Her days are measured and deliberate, yet there is a sense that something has already begun to shift in the spaces around her, in the light that falls across her room, the sound of the sea, and in the people who move in and out of her life. Lorenzo, a writer whose life has been shaped by his own obsessions and absences, enters her world indirectly. His story is revealed in fragments, letters, memories, and the echoes of his past decisions. He is not immediately present, but his influence permeates the narrative, connecting disparate events and characters through both intimacy and imagination. The film slowly unveils how his actions, desires, and silences have affected those around him. Lucia begins a tentative relationship with a man named Belen's acquaintance, but this connection is interrupted by revelations from the past, secrets, misunderstandings, and moments of desire that have long remained unspoken. As the story unfolds, it becomes clear that the lives of Lucia, Lorenzo, Elena, and Belen are entangled not just by circumstance, but by memory and longing. The narrative moves fluidly between past and present, between imagined intimacy and lived reality, showing that events are not always chronological and that people carry consequences they do not always recognize. Tension rises as hidden relationships come to light. Lorenzo's past affairs, unacknowledged emotions, and personal failures intersect with Lucia's search for clarity. Desire and regret collide quietly in rooms, on beaches, and in small acts of tenderness or neglect. Characters confront their choices, not through confrontation, but through recognition. Brief glances, interrupted conversations, and the quiet persistence of feeling. Elena and Carlos provide contrasts, one as a witness to the unfolding events, the other as a stabilizing presence in Lucia's life. Each character's actions ripple, shaping outcomes beyond their immediate control. The film emphasizes these connections without spelling them out, relying on repetition, reflection, and visual metaphor. The climax is not sudden, but inevitable. The intertwined stories reach a point where memory, desire, and consequence cannot be separated. Misunderstandings are acknowledged, but not all are resolved. Relationships are reshaped, some through acceptance, others through distance or absence. The characters are forced to reckon with both their past choices and their present realities, understanding that life's consequences are rarely neat and desire rarely straightforward. By the end, Lucia has gained a fragile clarity. She understands more about herself, her desires, and the patterns that connect her to others. Lorenzo's presence lingers, both in memory and imagination, suggesting that human connections persist beyond physical proximity. The story closes with a sense of quiet observation. The sea continues its rhythm, the sun still moves across the sky, and life goes forward, carrying both the traces of love and the weight of what was lost. The film concludes without full resolution, leaving viewers with reflection rather than answer. It is a story of intimacy, memory, and consequence, of how people intersect in ways that shape them long after they think they have moved on. Desire, regret, and hope exist together, unresolved yet deeply human. When Sex and Lucia premiered in 2001, It immediately drew attention for its explicit sexual content and intense emotional themes. Unlike many mainstream films, it did not shy away from intimacy, portraying desire, vulnerability, and human connection as central to the story. This approach, though celebrated in art house circles, caused unease in countries with stricter regulations regarding sexual content. In Spain, the film was released without a ban, but it generated debate. Critics and audiences were divided. Some praised the film for its poetic storytelling and sophisticated treatment of human relationships, while others considered the sexual material provocative or uncomfortable. The controversy was largely cultural, reflecting society's ongoing negotiation with representations of sexuality on screen. In parts of Europe, including Italy, Portugal, and some regions of France, the film faced age restrictions and sometimes limited theatrical releases. Censors focused primarily on prolonged sexual scenes and nudity. Television broadcasts required edits, shortening or removing intimate sequences, though cinema versions generally remained intact. Outside Europe, the response was stricter. In several Middle Eastern and Asian countries, the film was effectively banned by virtue of refusing classification, meaning it could not be screened legally. This was not due to violence, but to the frank depiction of sexual relationships, including extramarital desire, intimacy, and eroticism. In the United States, the film was released primarily in art house theaters and film festivals, receiving an R rating for sexual content. The rating limited mainstream distribution and advertising, restricting the audience largely to those familiar with European or independent cinema. Despite these initial restrictions, the film's artistic reputation grew over time. What once caused discomfort came to be appreciated as an exploration of memory, desire, and consequence. The controversy highlighted not only cultural differences in cinematic regulation, but also the growing recognition of films that treat intimacy as a narrative tool rather than spectacle. Today, Sex and Lucia is generally approached as a significant work of Spanish cinema, studied for its narrative structure, poetic imagery, and exploration of human relationships. Its controversies, while notable at the time, are now seen as part of the historical context that shaped its reception and legacy. Sex and Lucia marked a turning point. Paz Vega, portraying Lucia, was propelled into international recognition. Her performance revealed a quiet confidence and a capacity to convey complex emotions through subtle gestures and expressions. The film established her as a serious actor capable of embodying both vulnerability and strength, setting the stage for a career that would move fluidly between Spanish and international cinema. Tristán Ulloa, as Lorenzo, gained attention for his ability to portray a character defined as much by absence as presence. His performance emphasized introspection, emotional restraint, and the weight of memory, solidifying his reputation as a compelling actor in dramatic European cinema. Najwa Nimri, Elena's interpreter, reinforced her profile as an actor who could carry intensity without excess, while Elena Anaya and Daniel Fryer added depth through smaller yet meaningful presences, rounding out a cast whose interplay of observation, desire, and tension formed the emotional core of the film. For cinema itself, the film reinforced the possibilities of European art house storytelling. It demonstrated that sexual content could be used not merely for shock or titillation, but as a vehicle for exploring human emotion, memory, and consequence. Its nonlinear structure, layered narrative, and intertwining of imagination with reality influenced subsequent filmmakers who sought to treat desire and intimacy with both care and narrative sophistication. The film's approach encouraged directors to experiment with time, perspective, and narrative fragmentation, trusting audiences to engage actively rather than passively. Culturally, Sex and Lucia encouraged a broader conversation about the depiction of intimacy, gender, and emotional consequence in cinema. It challenged audiences to sit with tension and ambiguity rather than seek clear resolutions. By refusing to simplify or moralize desire, it reflected a maturity in Spanish cinema at the start of the 21st century, positioning Spain as a space where filmmakers could address universal human themes with subtlety and visual poetry. Theaters and distributors, the film reinforced the role of art house in festival circuits. Its success, despite censorship in some countries, showed that there was a global audience for emotionally and visually complex stories that defied conventional plot structures. The legacy of Sex and Lucia persists not in box office numbers alone, but in the confidence it gave actors, directors, and audiences to explore intimacy, memory, and consequence with honesty, patience, and artistry. When the screen goes dark, the story does not leave entirely. Lucia lingers in memory, not as a figure to understand, but as a presence to feel. The sea continues its rhythm. The wind moves over sunlit terraces, and the world carries on as if nothing has shifted, and yet everything has. The events, the desires, the unspoken choices, all remain quietly, like traces in sand that cannot be fully erased. The film does not promise resolution. It does not tie the past neatly to the present. Instead, it invites reflection on longing, on connection, on the ways people intersect, and on the fragile architecture of memory and emotion. Moments return differently each time they are revisited, revealing layers unseen, whispers overlooked, and silences heavier than words. For those who wish to explore cinema that observes without instructing, that trusts the audience to feel before judging, this is a space to pause, watch, and return. Stories like this do not conclude. They echo. They demand attention, patience, and thought. If you wish to follow more films that unfold in light, shadow, and subtle tension, stay with us. Subscribe, not for noise but for stories that do not end when the credits roll, for stories that continue to resonate long after the last frame.